The silence no one saw coming. Studio lights were bright, almost too bright. They buzzed softly overhead like bees trapped behind glass. Dozens of crew members moved quietly, adjusting cameras, checking lighting, whispering instructions. Was just another day on set? Or at least, that's how it was supposed to be? Ana de Armas stood in the center of the scene, her hands clenched just slightly. Her character had to deliver one powerful line. Just one. It was emotional. Raw. The director called it the emotional anchor of the entire film. She had practiced the line dozens of times in her trailer, whispered it into her mirror, felt it in her chest. It had sounded perfect then. But now on set, something shifted. Her throat tightened. Her breath caught halfway. The words just wouldn't come. Keanu Reeves stood behind the camera watching. Ready for his cue? He wasn't in this shot, but he never left the set when someone else had an emotional scene. He believed in support, in presence, in quiet encouragement. The director called action. And silence followed. Ana's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes searched the space in front of her, but she wasn't really seeing anything. Something inside her locked. Maybe it was pressure. Maybe it was doubt. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the memory of something personal this scene reminded her of. 10 seconds passed, then 20. The silence grew heavier. A crew member shifted. The sound guy glanced down, makeup artist behind the monitor pressed. Her lips together. Everyone was waiting, but no one moved.
Ow.
The director's fingers hovered above the headset.
Ow.
He was about to call cut. But then, something happened. Keanu walked slowly onto the set. No one told him to. No one expected him to. He didn't look at the director, didn't ask for permission. He just walked to Ana gently, like he was approaching a wounded bird. Ana didn't move. Her breathing was shaky now, and her eyes were glistening. She felt the heat rising behind them. Tears were close. Keanu didn't speak. He simply stood beside her. Then, slowly, he reached out and took her hand. His touch was warm, grounding. Ana turned her head slightly, just enough to meet his eyes. You don't have to do this alone, he whispered softly, so only she could hear. She didn't reply, but her fingers tightened around his. A tear slipped down her cheek. Keanu stayed beside her for several seconds, saying nothing more, just standing there. Being there, finally, she closed her eyes, took a deep breath. And when she opened them again, something inside had shifted. The fear was still there, but it was softer now. Less sharp. Keanu gave her hand one final squeeze and then stepped away, back into the shadows beyond the camera. The director, stunned, kept the camera rolling. He didn't say a word. Ana looked up. Her posture changed. She inhaled again, deeper this time. Then, with trembling courage, she delivered the line. It wasn't perfect. It was better than that. It was real. The entire crew stood still for a moment, caught in the quiet aftermath of something deeply human. And then the director said quietly, "Cut." Ana's shoulders dropped. She exhaled like someone who had been holding their breath underwater. There was no applause. No loud praise. Just respectful silence, until someone whispered that was something else. Ana walked off the set slowly, her mind still spinning. She knew something had changed. Just in the scene, but in her, and she knew why. As she stepped outside into the open air, Keanu was there, waiting. Sitting on the steps of a trailer, sipping from a paper cup, he looked up and smiled gently. "You okay?" Ana paused, then nodded. "You didn't have to do that," she said, voice still soft. Keanu shrugged lightly. "Sometimes you just need someone to stand beside you." They sat together in silence for a while, the sun setting gently behind the studio buildings. But inside Ana's heart, something had begun to rise against something strong, something steady. And it all started with a moment when she frozened, someone who chose not to walk away. Whispers in the hallway the next morning. The air on set felt different. People walked a little more carefully, their voices quieter. No one spoke directly about what had happened the day before, but it was there, hanging softly in the corners. Of every conversation, Ana de Armas hadn't just struggled, She had stood in front of the entire crew, frozen, vulnerable, and then somehow found her voice again. And everyone knew Keanu Reeves had something to do with it. Anna arrived early, earlier than usual. She needed to be alone for a few minutes before the lights came on, before the lenses were pointed at her again. She walked the length of the empty soundstage slowly, her shoes echoing softly on the floor. It was quiet, almost too quiet, she thought. She'd feel embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. But strangely, she didn't. Instead, she felt opened, like something heavy had been broken, and light was now pouring through the cracks. Behind her, she heard footsteps, slow. "Calm, morning," Keanu said gently. Anna turned, smiled. "Morning." They walked together in silence for a bit. The stage was still empty. No cameras, no crew. Just quiet space between two people who didn't need to say much. Finally, Anna asked, "How did you know?" Keanu looked at her, confused. "Know what? That I needed someone yesterday?" He paused, thinking. Then he said softly, "I didn't. No, I just saw you standing there, and something told me to walk forward instead of watching." Anna nodded slowly. "Thank you," Keanu smiled a little. "Anytime." They sat on the edge of the stage together, legs dangling. Anna picked at the thread of her sleeve. Keanu sipped from a thermos he carried everywhere. It smelled like mint tea. "You know," he said after a moment, "there's strength in stopping, freezing. I mean, something inside you is speaking. It's not weakness." Anna looked at him, surprised. "No one ever says that." "That's because most people are afraid to stop," he said. "They think pushing through everything is courage. But sometimes courage is standing still." She didn't say anything for a while, and quietly it reminded me of something. That line, the scene, Keanu didn't push. He didn't ask what it reminded her of. He just nodded. Listened. Anna took a deep breath. "When I was younger, I saw something. Something painful. I never told anyone, not really. But that line yesterday, it felt like it was meant for me. I was speaking to that girl who stayed silent. Her voice broke at the end. Just a little." Keanu looked ahead. "And maybe yesterday wasn't just about the movie." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "Maybe that scene gave you a chance to tell her something. That young version of you. Maybe that's why you froze." Because she was listening. Anna felt something shift inside again. Something unspoken that had waited for years. Not loosening. They didn't say much after that. They didn't need to. Sometimes silence was the safest place to be. But outside, the soundstage, something else, was starting to build. Rumors, whispers, crew members talked in the corners between takes. Some were kind, others were not. "She's fragile," someone said. "Too emotional for this role." Another added, Anna heard fragments in the makeup trailer. In the wardrobe hallway. Not directly, never to her face, but just close enough. She pretended not to hear. She smiled politely. She nodded at everyone, but inside something began to shrink again. Until lunch. When a voice rose above the noise. "If anyone thinks strength is staying silent when you're hurting, they're wrong." Everyone turned. It was Keanu. He stood by. The food truck, his plate untouched. "What happened yesterday," he continued, "was one of the bravest things I've seen on a set. Don't twist it into weakness just because it made you uncomfortable." No one replied. They just stood, awkwardly shifting. Anna, standing behind a trailer nearby, heard every word. Later that day, when they were shooting a quiet walking scene, between their characters, the director adjusted the lighting and left them to rehearse alone. Anna looked at Keanu, eyes glassy. "You didn't have to say anything." "Maybe not," he said, "but silence can protect the wrong people." Gave a small laugh. "You talk like a poet." "I read a lot of books. You should write one." He smiled. "Maybe I already am." That night, after shooting wrapped, Anna stayed behind. The set was dark now, the crew gone. The echo of her shoes against the floor felt heavier. She walked to the same spot she had frozen in the day before. She stood there, took a deep breath, and whispered the line again, soft, steady. True, this time there was no camera, no crew, just her, and in the shadows unnoticed. Keanu watched from a distance. He didn't interrupt, he just smiled, because he knew sometimes healing doesn't need an audience. It just needs a quiet place and the courage to return. The scene that broke Earth next week moved quickly. New scenes, tighter schedules, more pressure. The studio was racing toward its deadline, and everyone could feel it in the air like electricity before a storm. Anna stayed focused. She arrived early, stayed late, rehearsed each scene quietly to herself. She was doing her best to stay steady, to stay strong. But even the strongest people get tired when they're constantly proving they're okay. And something inside her still felt raw. The director pulled her aside on Tuesday evening. He held a script in one hand and looked at her gently. "Tomorrow's scene might be tough," he said. "It's not just emotional, it's personal." Anna raised her eyebrows. "How personal?" "You'll be crying, confronting your characters. Biggest fear, the whole thing rests on you. No one else is in the shot." Anna nodded slowly, already feeling her heart rate rise. "I'll be ready." But she wasn't sure she would. Later that night, she sat in her trailer, flipping through the script. She kept returning to one line, reading it again and again. Her character was supposed to break down and say, "You never saw me." Not really. Not when it mattered. Anna had said those exact words once. In real life. She was 16. Her father was shouting again. He didn't understand why she was quiet, or why she locked herself in her room for hours. He told her to be normal, to stop acting. She'd screamed back those exact words. "You never saw me." Not really. Not when it mattered. She remembered the way her voice shook, the silence that followed, the door slamming, and the deep loneliness that crawled into her chest and stayed there for years. Now, she was supposed to relive it. But this time, in front of a crew with cameras rolling, she didn't sleep that night. She stared at the ceiling, her eyes open, breathing in quiet darkness. By morning, her hands were trembling. On set, Keanu noticed right away. "You okay?" he asked as she stepped out of makeup. She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just tired." He didn't push, just handed her a thermos mint. Tea, warm, familiar. The same one he always carried. "Thanks," she whispered. He gave a soft smile. "I'll be nearby." The crew set up slowly. The scene would be shot in one long take. No breaks, no edits. Just Anna in a dimly lit room, facing a mirror, saying, the lines that cut deepest. Everyone cleared the space. Sound was ready. The camera glided into position. The director leaned in. "Take your time when you're ready." Anna sat on the bed, script long gone now. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the lights. She stared at the mirror. Her reflection looked stronger than she felt. Action. The room went still. Anna opened her mouth. The first few lines came quiet, shaky. She talked about abandonment, about fear, about holding on to love that was never returned. Then came the line, "You never saw me." Not really. Her throat tightened. Not when it mattered. Her voice broke. Her shoulders started to shake. And before she could stop herself, the tears came. Not controlled, not staged, but real. Heavy sobs that rocked her entire body. It wasn't acting anymore. The room was dead silent. But behind the camera, crew members began to shift. Some looked down. Others turned away, unsure if they were witnessing something too personal. Anna curled in on herself, her hand pressed to her face. It was too much. That's when she felt it. A hand on her shoulder, soft, steady, not scripted. She turned and saw Keanu kneeling beside her, his eyes full of calm. "You don't have to finish it," he said gently. "Not like this." She tried to speak, but Keanu looked at the director. "Cut, please." The director hesitated and nodded. Cut. The camera lowered. The tension eased. Anna clutched Keanu's hand, still shaking. Her breaths were shallow. He didn't move. He didn't talk. He just stayed. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red, her voice a whisper. "I thought I could separate it." The character in me. Keanu shook his head slowly. You don't always have to. Sometimes the lines blur for a reason. Okay? She let the tears fall again. But this time, they weren't full of shame. They were full of release. They sat together on the bed for a long time. No cameras, no crew. Just two people and a silence that held space for both of them. Later that day, the director came to her trailer. We spoke with care. We saw something powerful today, real. I'm not using it unless you say yes. Anna nodded. Slowly. Use it, but not because it was painful. Use it because it was honest. He nodded back. Of course. As the day ended and the set began to empty, Keanu walked with her toward the parking lot. That scene, she said, broke something in me. He looked at her gently. Sometimes breaking is the beginning of healing. She smiled softly. You keep saying these beautiful things. Do you write them down? No, he said with a smirk. I just say them when someone needs to hear them. Anna paused. Thank you. He stopped walking. You don't have to thank me. No, she said, turning to face him. I do. They stood under the fading evening light. The air was calm now. Still. Anna looked toward the sky, then back. At the soundstage, I don't know what tomorrow will bring, she said. Keanu nodded. Whatever it brings, you won't face it alone. For the first time in a long time, she believed it. The weight of silence days that followed were quieter, but not in a peaceful way. They were the kind of quiet that made everything feel heavy, the kind where people walked a little faster past each other, afraid to make eye contact. Afraid. To say the wrong thing, Anna felt it, not from Keanu, not from the director, not from the handful of kind crew members who smiled with respect, but from others, the ones who whispered, the ones who saw her vulnerability in that emotional scene and turned it into gossip. She's too sensitive. She broke down. Again, Keanu had to rescue her again. Is she even strong enough to lead this film? Anna heard it. Not directly. Never to her face, but she heard it in the way conversations stopped when she walked into a room. In the eyes that avoided hers, in the fake smiles that vanished too quickly. It stung. She wanted to say something. To fight back. To stand tall and scream, I'm not weak, I'm just human. But she didn't. Instead, she stayed quiet, smiled politely, and carried the weight of their judgment alone, until the producer called her in. His office was cold, modern, glass everywhere. Anna sat across from him, fingers curled into the fabric of her jeans. He looked at her with an expression that wasn't unkind, but wasn't kind either. You've been doing great work, he began, tapping his pen against a notepad. But we've received concerns. Anna blinked. Concerns about your emotional stability, your ability to perform under pressure, your ... reliability. The words hit like ice. I delivered every scene, she said, voice quiet but steady. Even the one that was hard. You did, he agreed. But perception matters too. And right now, some people are perceiving you as fragile. Anna stared at him. Her heart raced. I'm not fragile, she said slowly. He sighed. I'm not accusing. I'm just advising. Keep your head down. Finish the job. And maybe be less visible when things get tough. She stood up. I appreciate your advice, she said, her voice tight. But hiding is what broke me in the first place. Then she walked out. Her hands were shaking. Outside, the sky was gray. Not raining, but close. She found a quiet bench near the soundstage and sat down, alone, again, until she heard footsteps. Keanu. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside her and placed a folded napkin in her hand. Wrapped inside was a still warm blueberry muffin. They're whispering again, she said. Let them, Keanu replied, unwrapping his own muffin. You're not here for them, but they're making it hard to breathe. He looked at her. Then let's make some noise. Ahana turned to him, confused. What do you mean? Don't hide, don't shrink, don't apologize for being real. Tell your story before they tell it for you. She thought about that all night, and the next day, she showed up with something new in her hands. a small handwritten letter. She asked the director if she could say a few words before the first take. The crew gathered. Unsure, Anna stood in front of them, her voice clear, her hands steady. "Some of you may think I broke down last week," she began. "And maybe I did, but what you saw wasn't weakness. Yes, it was truth. It was the most honest moment I've ever had on screen. I won't be ashamed of it." Silence. "If you think that makes me fragile, that's okay. But you should also know I came back the next day, and the one after that, and I'll keep coming back because strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just choosing to stay." She paused, then nodded. "That's all." No applause, no big reaction, just a few quiet nods. And a stillness that felt different this time. Afterwards, Keanu passed her in the hallway. He gave her a slow smile and tapped his heart with 2 fingers. That afternoon, they filmed a difficult scene together, confrontation, full of anger, and buried pain. It was intense, emotional, and raw, and Anna nailed it. Every take, the crew clapped at the end. Not a loud, forced clap, but an honest one. And that evening, she returned to her trailer. She found something waiting for her. Note, no name, written in simple, careful letters. "Thank you for speaking. I didn't know I needed to hear that." Anna folded the note and placed it in her journal, because sometimes one voice is enough to break the silence, and sometimes courage looks like standing still and letting the world see you, flaws and all. When the world finally watched to be the end of the month, something began to change. Not suddenly, not like a lightning strike, but slowly, like the way morning light crawls across a room and makes you see what was always there. Anna felt it first. In the way the crew smiled, a little longer now, in the way they listened when she spoke. No more whispers behind her back. No more half-glances that stung. There was still pressure, still hard scenes, but now there was respect. People didn't talk about what happened anymore. They talked about what she became. The director started pulling her aside more often, not to caution her, but to collaborate. "Your instincts are strong," he said once. "Don't second-guess them." And Keanu? He was there, like always, quiet, steady, present. But now they laughed more between takes. Shared stories over coffee. Sometimes they just sat together in silence during lunch. Comfortable in the calm they found near each other. One afternoon, Anna found him leaning against a set wall. "Looking out over the hills, I heard we're doing press early," she said, joining him. He nodded. "They want interviews next week, maybe a trailer tease." Anna hesitated. "What do I say if they ask about the scene?" Keanu looked at her gently. "What do you want them to hear?" She paused. "The truth." "Then say that." She took a breath. "It still scares me, talking about it. That's why it matters," he said. "The most powerful truths are the ones we're scared to say out loud." The interview day arrived quickly. Bright lights, velvet chairs, makeup touch-ups, 100 questions waiting behind polished smiles. Anna wore a soft blue dress, nothing too bold. But her eyes held something that hadn't been there. Before something steady, they asked her about the film, about the story. Then, gently they approached it. "There was a scene," the host said, "where we heard you got very emotional, even paused filming for a bit. Can you talk about that moment?" Anna didn't flinch. "Sure," she said calmly. "That scene was deeply personal. It mirrored something from my past. And in that moment, I didn't act. I remembered." The host leaned forward, and Keanu walked in. Unscripted. Anna smiled. Yes, he didn't say much, just stood with me. That was all I needed. "Some called it a breakdown," the host added carefully. "I call it a breakthrough," Anna replied. "Because I didn't hide. When I looked up, someone was still there." Across the room, Keanu watched. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held pride. That interview went viral in less than 24 hours. People shared clips online, posted messages. This is what courage looks like. I've never related more to a celebrity. Thank you, Anna, for saying what so many of us couldn't. And underneath it all always was the quiet name that kept appearing in comments. Keanu, not because he said something grand, but because he said nothing, and still spoke volumes. The studio leaned into it. The trailer dropped days later. And in that trailer, one moment stood out. Anna looking into a mirror, her voice trembling but true. You never saw me. Not really. Not when it mattered. Millions watched it. Millions felt. And then something unexpected happened. One evening, Anna's agent called. You might want to sit down, she said. Anna laughed nervously. That sounds terrifying. You just got nominated. For what? Best Actress. Critics circle. Your name's on the list. Anna didn't speak. She couldn't. And there's more, the agent added. They're calling that scene the one with the mirror one of the most honest performances of the year. After the call, Anna sat alone in her trailer. She didn't cry. She smiled, and then she picked up her phone. Keanu. Quiet. Hey, he answered. Can you meet me on set? I'm already walking there. 10 minutes later, they sat under the studio lights, just the two of them. Anna told him everything. The nomination, the buzz, the words the critics used. He smiled, proud. You earned every bit of it. She looked down. I'm not sure how to feel. Then don't feel anything yet. Just breathe. Let it sink in. She nodded. Did you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't walked into that scene? Keanu leaned forward, elbows on knees. I do. And then I realize that moment wasn't about me stepping in. It was about you standing up. She looked at him. Thank you for standing with me. Always, he said simply. Outside. The night was still, calm. The studio lot mostly empty. But inside that soundstage, history had been made, not just in film, but in the quiet bond between two souls who chose kindness over judgment, presence over distance. And Anna finally knew sometimes the world needs to see someone fall, to learn what it looks like when they rise. The light that stayed night of the awards ceremony arrived like a wave loud, glittering, full of attention. Anna stood in front of a full-length mirror, her gown flowing like silver smoke around her feet. Her hair was pinned gently, her earrings simple but elegant. Around her, assistants moved quickly, offering last touches. Photographers were already gathering outside. But in the center of it all, she stood still. Not frozen, just thoughtful. She remembered the girl who had once stood in the middle of a soundstage, paralyzed by a memory, unable to speak. She remembered the weight of doubt, the whispers, the fear of being seen, and now here she was, nominated, respected. Known not just for what she looked like on screen, but for what she showed when the camera stopped. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. She opened it. Keanu stood there in a dark suit, his expression warm. Ready? She asked. She smiled. I think so. They walked the red carpet together. Flashes lit the evening like tiny lightning bolts. Reporters called their names. Questions flew. But through it all, Anna walked with grace. Keanu just a step behind, quiet, steady, as he always was. The ceremony was beautiful, elegant. The lights dimmed as the presenter stepped up to announce the winner for Best Actress. Anna held her breath. Not because she needed the award, not anymore, but because she had already won something deeper. And the award for Best Actress goes to, the presenter smiled, opening the envelope. Ana de Armas. The room exploded into applause. Anna sat frozen for just a moment, then stood, trembling slightly as Keanu rose beside her. He didn't hug her, didn't overwhelm the moment. He just touched her hand briefly and whispered, Go. This is yours. She walked slowly to the stage, her heart pounding. The golden statue was heavier than she expected. The lights were hotter, brighter, but she felt calm. She looked out over the audience. Actors, directors, producers, strangers' faces she once feared would judge her. Then she spoke. There was a moment, she began, during the filming of our movie, where I completely broke. Not because the scene was hard, but because it touched something in me that was real, too real. The room was quiet. I couldn't speak. I froze. And in that silence, someone stepped forward, not to fix me, not to take over, but just to be there, to remind me I wasn't alone. She looked at Keanu in the audience. He smiled, eyes soft. "This award means a lot," she continued. "But what means more is that I learned it's okay to break sometimes, because healing doesn't happen in hiding. It happens in the open, when someone sees you and doesn't walk away." She paused, then nodded once. "Thank you." To everyone who didn't look away, applause filled the room. Real, thunderous. After the ceremony, they stood outside under the city lights. Anna held the award in one hand, her shoes in the other. She laughed softly, barefoot on the pavement. "I can't feel my feet," she said. "You've been standing for 3 hours," Keanu replied. "Worth it?" They walked to the edge of the parking lot, away from the noise, the limos, the flashing lights. "Can I ask you something?" she said, turning to him, of course. "Why did you stay that day on set when I couldn't speak?" For a moment, then said, "Because too many people leave when silence gets uncomfortable. I didn't want to be one of them." Anna nodded, her eyes shining again. "You weren't?" A moment passed, then she asked, "And what about you? What do you need?" "People always ask me, but no one asks you." Keanu looked surprised. He shrugged. "I don't know, I guess. Yeah. I need reminders that kindness still matters." Outen took his hand. "Then let me remind you your kindness saved me." They stood there hand in hand under the soft glow of a street lamp. And though the night was cool, they both felt warm. The movie released a month later. Critics called it powerful, haunting, unforgettable. Audiences cried during that mirror scene. Not because it was sad, but because it was real. They saw something true in Anna's eyes. Something they couldn't explain, and many never knew. It wasn't acting at all. It was remembering the film went on to win awards. Keanu's career soared. Interviews followed. Headlines. Praise, but through it all, she stayed grounded because she had learned something priceless. Being seen wasn't about perfection. It was about honesty. And healing wasn't about forgetting it. It was about facing the moment you froze and walking back into it with someone who stayed. Years later, in another interview, she was asked, "What's the moment that changed everything?" "For you?" Anna smiled. "It was the moment I couldn't speak, and someone chose silence over saving, presence over pressure. That moment didn't make me a better actress. It made me whole." The world would always remember the movie, but she would always remember the man who didn't let her stand alone in her silence.